Hey everybody, in this video I want to show you the quickest way to create a Node.js API along with the Swagger documentation, the statistics, and the tracking that you need when you create an API. Now the most common reason to create an API is because you have data in your database, and it could be a MySQL database, a SQL Server database, DB2, Oracle, whatever it may be. But what you want is for your web app or your mobile app or another application to have some level of access to that data. So we're going to speed up the whole process of creating all the pieces that you need to have a functional API by using low code in Profound.js. Alright, so let's get started by going to profoundjs.com and creating a new space. We will not be using a template, so we can close out of this template selection dialog. Next, let's click the Publish button and give our workspace a name as well as a description. And so now we have a brand new published workspace. Let's first set up our database. I'm going to do this by creating a sample database, but of course it goes without saying that these contents apply to your own data and database if you were to configure it. The table I'll be working with is products. And over here I can view the columns, query the data, or even edit the data if I need to. Now I typically generate my Node.js low-code API directly from a table rather than starting from scratch. And there's a convenient option here for me to do just that in one click. I simply select Build API. This creates for me a fully functional API with all of the CRUD, create, read, update, delete functionality. It has multiple routes for each one of these, and from here I can either remove the functionality that I don't need, like if I don't want to allow the API to insert or update records, I would just remove those API routes. Or I can also expand the functionality. For example, if I wanted to join the data that is returned to other tables or add some additional calculations, I can do all that either with low-code plugins or by writing Node.js code. Now, before any of this is runnable, I do have to save this API file. And it's saved as a JSON file, which contains all of my API documentation, my routes, my business logic. It's all in this one file. So on the right-hand side, we have our different routes, and I can click through each one of these to see all of the relevant details, including the general info for each one of these, like the path and the method, as well as the descriptions that relate to each one of the routes. And these descriptions are very important because this generates the Swagger documentation for the API. If you're not familiar with Swagger, it's also known as the Open API specification. It's a JSON document which is used for testing the API and to track the API, as well as provide API details to the consumer of the API, which could be your customer or it could be another developer within your organization. Now, in the middle section, we have low-code blocks for handling the business logic. If at any point the requirements get very complex that I need to do custom coding, I can always convert these to code, and this gives me a lot of flexibility. Now this is very granular. Some of the API definition can be written using code, and other parts can use low-code plugins. I also want to mention API input and output definitions. You can specify all the details as to what input parameters are needed, how they're retrieved by the API, and all of this both makes the API work as well as populates our Swagger definition. And the same applies to the output. You can define your output values or arrays or objects and then document each property as needed. Now let's take a look at testing the API. So in this case, I can test the get API route to retrieve a specific product. Using this interface, I can type in the product code and then execute the API. And then I can see all of the response details. Okay, now let's look at the Stats tab. And here I can basically see information about how the API has performed, how fast it is, how many times it's been used, and so forth. I can expand this view and get even more details. Finally, let me show you this thing called an API Explorer. This is what you would share with your customer or other developers in the organization so they can explore all of the API that you've made available to them. That way they have access to the information that they need, as well as have the ability to try the API and have examples that are available for them. I really do hope you found this quick introduction to be useful. There's a lot to learn when it comes to API, but the simplest and quickest way to create all of the components that you need for a complete API is to use a low-code tool. This can save you days, if not months of time, and the maintenance and tracking becomes so much easier as well. If you want to follow this example and try creating your own API, you can do this right now by going to Profound.js.com. It's very simple to sign up, create a new space, and start creating.